Good evening, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good night, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, without further ado, let's get into the news. In a huge election when in the state of Florida, across the state school boards were flipped from leading liberal school boards that embrace CRT, and of course, the trans ideology has been flipped to conservatives. Absolute major wins. The hardest hit are obviously the trans activists, the FBI, the Democrats, who all embraced this type of education that they wanted to pass on as being racist, and turning young kids into making young kids confused about their sexual orientation. And of course, teaching them pornographic things in, and school parents have had enough. They've risen up and they take it back to school boards here in the state of Florida. What a great victory. We knew this was coming, especially with all the mass hysteria that took place in many of the counties here in the state of Florida, where school boards were still using draconian methods in order to allow kids to return to school after the governor's orders had told them. Every student and parents had their right to choose whether or not their parent or their student could wear or child could wear a mask or not. Some school boards, for example, like Hillsborough County, said, no, everyone's going to have to wear it. And there was many legal battles, but it looks like it was resolved at the voting box, with parents retaking these critical infrastructure. This is why it continued to talk about local elections need to be priority, because they directly impact you the most. Red Wave. Florida flips multiple woke school boards from liberal or conservative. Florida flipped multiple woke school boards from liberal to conservative on Tuesday. Conservatives in Florida are fighting back against the left mission to brainwash children. The left is trying to force CRT transgender propaganda pronouns on young school kids, and the good guys won tonight. We saw massive election victories all throughout the state of Florida tonight. 1776 Project PAC founder Ryan Gert Sky told Breitbart News today it shows the desire for parents and residents across the country for some normalcy in our education system. That means pushing back against the trans ideology, critical race theory, critical gender ideology, and equality versus equity, which destroys merit in education. The Project PAC hopes that this successors will be across the country as well. So here are the school boards that got flipped: Bay County, Brevard County, Clay County, Devolo County, Volland Clay, both near where I'm at, Flagler County, St. Fernando Hills Row where I used to live, Martin, Miami-Dade, Okaloosa, Polk, Putnam, and Sarasota. Huge win. Sarasota flipped. We flipped a school board from a 3 to liberal to a majority for 1. That's huge. Sarasota County School Board was recently with bragging about being woke, and she was caught on tape of doing that here. You see that in that clip there. At Clay County School Board is now 3 to conservative majority. The Vote County also flipped as well. And that's a huge win there. Miami-Dade County. Miami is now the largest county in America with conservative school board majority. That is huge. Of course, Marin County, all 3 conservative candidates backed by 1776 projects, won in Miami-Dade County. Huge victories across. This is why the FBI and the National School Board Association was labeling parents who objected to the trend ideology to the CRT ideology as domestic terrorism, domestic terrorists, and this is why this was a huge success. And we saw the successes. We had a couple last year during the Virginia elections where school boards flip. And now here in the state of Florida, more school boards flip. There is a revolution happening in this nation where parents are rising up and taking back to school better boards to return to normalcy, back to the classroom. And what needs to happen from here at the school boards need to go ahead and implement things where if there are woke teachers, it is time to have them fired. And now one thing that we know about the Twitter mob, the liberal hive mind, the blue, Anon crew, the vote blue no matter who crew, whatever you want to call them, the leftist crowd in general, one thing we know for sure is that they're generally not tuned in to what's going on. The liberal hive mind follows the leftist narrative in whatever CNN and MSNBC is saying, but very rarely follows the actual facts. They absorb what is told to them. And that's pretty much about it. And that right there is a significant factor into the collective reaction or the overreaction that seems to pop up over and over again. Democrats are living in some alternate CNN MSNBC reality, totally unaware of what's going on in certain reports. And then once the truth or the actual news drops, well, it's a complete shock and surprise to them, and they're utterly dismayed as a collective hive mind. Well, It seems as though with the latest firing of Brian Stelter, and with more reports of CNN ownership group taking the network into a different direction, something we've been reporting on for well over 6 months at this point, lefties on Twitter in the Blue Anon crowd, and specifically CNN viewers, of course, the phenomenon of your brain on CNN, well, they're completely shocked. In fact, they're losing their damn minds as they start to cope with the reality that, well, they might have lost CNN and some of their favorite partisan left-wing hack figures. I was about to say like Don Lemon, but really it's like Don Lemon, Jim Acosta, Wolf Blitzer, Anderson Cooper, Jake Tapper. I mean, the list goes on. Pretty much every headline accurate CNN. Well, some of these partisan hacks might not be there for too much longer and CNN viewers are seething. Let me give you guys a glimpse into the liberal hive mind, and of course let's just talk about what's going on here. We got some stuff to get into, friends. So without further ado, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, take a look at this new CNN boss issues stark. Warning to employees, quote, "You might not like what's coming." CNN new president Chris Litch likely did not calm the nerves of those concerned about major changes and firings during an employee phone call on Friday, according to sources who were on the call. Let's warn CNN staffers that they might not like decisions that are coming down the pipe. The idiom is coming down the pike, not the pipe. But anyways, we'll move on. Another indication that the flagging legacy cable news outlet is about to experience significant upheaval. I want to acknowledge that this is a time of significant change. And I know that many of you are unsettled, which said, according to several who attended Friday's editorial call. The Hollywood Reporter noted there will be more changes and you might not understand it or like it. Literally replaced Jeff Zucker at the helm of CNN earlier this year, began evaluating the extremely partisan on-air talent shortly after he took over, and the phone call on Friday comes on the heels of news that one of the network's hosts, Brian Stelter, whose weekly Reliable Sources program has seen tanking ratings for more than a year, was leaving after his show was reportedly cancelled. Quote, "No one is safe or secure right now," one source on the phone call told the outlet Deadline. "I think people are legitimately sad that Brian is leaving," one staffer at CNN told The Hollywood Reporter anonymously. "He was a big presence at the network. But understand that Chris has to put his stamp on the network." Well, you heard it right there, folks, from an inside source. No one at CNN is safe. Of course, we already knew this because of all the reporting. And I mean, frankly, because of what's been going on. If you think Brian Stelter was the only one on the chopping block, well, of course, you're not paying attention to what's been said or what's been reported. There is a massive shake-up underway at CNN. You might have noticed also that Jeffrey Toobin, of course, you know who Jeffrey Toobin is, right? Just last week, resigned from his post at CNN. Do you think it's a coincidence that Jeffrey Toobin resigns the same week that Brian Stelter's show gets cancelled? Absolutely not. It's probably one of those "no, I broke up with her, she didn't break up with me" kind of situations. This new ownership group, and this new CNN president is coming in and cleaning house. I mean, for Pete's sakes, I might even be able to watch CNN after all this is said and done. But it's very clear that the new ownership group is coming in not playing any games. And it's frankly a nice trend to see Netflix and Paramount Plus recently telling their staff that some decisions we make might offend you or might be unsettling, but you're just gonna have to deal with it. Well, the new CNN ownership group is saying the exact same thing. One of the network hosts might be fired, you might be fired, no one is safe. The network is moving in a completely different direction. And well, just deal with it. Because we're tired of being the biggest laughingstock in the news network industry. It's a beautiful thing, folks, and most rational people are thinking, alright, well, you know, that's a pretty good thing. CNN has been utterly unwatchable for years. It's been such a left-wing partisan disgrace. It's a good thing for one of the flagship legacy use networks to go back to real news, or at least as close as they can possibly get. Well, that's what regular, normal, rational human beings are thinking. The leftist Twittersphere or the liberal hive mind, the Blue Anon crowd, the people suffering from their brain on CNN. Well, not exactly the same kind of reaction. Russell L. Honor writes, "It's been reported that the new chief at CNN has met privately with Republican members of Congress recently to get their views on how CNN might be more accommodating to Republican positions when airing the news on CNN." This report should not surprise both sides, and here are the liberal reactions. There aren't two sides when one party is fascist. #boycott CNN. Brooklyn Dead Defiant writes stop watching CNN, FCNN supporting seditious fear-mongering lying women-hating Pos Party. It's so vile. CNN is in talks with Republican leadership to air both sides of the political spectrum. The right's voice is filled with half-truths and disinformation. CNN is now airing lies from the right versus truths from the left. This is not news. When you constantly air untruths, for the love of God, stop watching CNN. I am effing sick and tired of people who watch and complain about CNN who then continue to watch CNN every effing day. Cenk Hugo chimes in. New owner of CNN says he wants to network to be more centrist. That means kiss more Republican behinds and pretend they might be right about things they're factually incorrect about. That's not journalism, that's eliminating factual coverage and replacing it with political correctness. What drug is Cenk Uygur on, or probably a better question, what cocktail of drugs is this guy on? Being more centrist, being more neutral is apparently just political correctness, where you pretend that the right is sometimes right about things, but actually they're factually incorrect. I think this is what they mean when they say liberalism is a mental disorder. This is not the way that normal people react to things. And it's a continuation from the topic that we've been touching on for a long time, that what left-boids want is not an arena of ideas, but rather they want to suppress and destroy your ability to have any type of representation within the media sphere or the cultural sphere. They want to destroy you. They want you to not exist, and you can clearly tell that they're struggling to cope with the fact that CNN may no longer be their network, the network that they can turn on and just get anti-Trump, Trump derangement syndrome nonsense shoved down their throats 24/7. They want a news media that works as a tool to attack Republicans. They don't want Republican views to even be aired. They're struggling to cope, folks, and probably the one guy who's struggling the most is Cenk Uygur. Here's another tweet that he recently put out. If you think that Brian Stelter is too partisan, you're a joke. At CNN isn't going toward better journalism by promising not to hold politicians in the media accountable. It's going toward worse journalism. It's not objective to call everything even its political correctness. Again, this guy just doesn't get it. He's literally telling you that he thinks CNN's job is to hold politicians in the media accountable. And when he says that, he means specifically Republicans, that to him is journalism. He then goes on to create this framing. But that is not objective to call everything even, as if that's what neutral journalism is, just calling everything even, old points when everyone gets a trophy. No, that's not at all what's happening here, Cenk. I know it's really hard for you to understand. But what journalism is supposed to be is to just present the facts, to challenge myths, truths, neutrally, not with a political spin, to just tell you this is what's happening in a very basic neutral sense, without any political framing whatsoever. For then you to make your own mind. CNN isn't promising to shill Republicans, they're promising to give Republicans a voice, an equal voice at the table, and to stop promoting left-wing hack nonsense as if it's journalism. And really, I don't care what the big deal is. If anything, it might be good for you. If people want left-wing and nonsense, left-wing partisan garbage that serves nothing but attacking Republicans with all kinds of myths, truths and falsehoods, well, then they couldn't turn on the TYT. And now you, Cenk, you might be able to start a refugee campaign to pull all the disgruntled former CNN watchers to your garbage network. Who am I kidding? That's probably exactly what Cenk Uygur is doing. His next tweet was probably, we at TYT are absolutely shocked and appalled by this new CNN direction. We promise to never be neutral, always be partisan, and continue to lie and attack Republicans as CNN decides that it no longer will subscribe. I'm not even going to look at his Twitter timeline. I guarantee you that's exactly what he's doing. But that's also what I got for you guys. The left is losing their mind, and losing yet again. Another piece of cultural power. Seems as though they're slowly losing the media. Thank you very much. WWG1WGA. Give me your thoughts below.